Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the episode 11 of How Has China Impacted Your Life series. Growing up from a developing country, Ghana, I had a dream, and that dream was an American dream. After having that dream, only to end up in China. After coming to China, I've been surprised to meet several Americans in China. Whilst we want to be in America, they are running away from that American dream. Join with us is one special guest today. She is an American and she has lived in China for more than 10 good years.
Yes.
And she is the only Alysia Lee Asp in the world. She is a creative coach, an entrepreneur, and so many. Without adulterating words, let's welcome our special guest. Hi, Alysia, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Hi to everybody in the world who's watching this, either live or recorded.
Wow, good to have you. When we talk about Alysia, who is she?
Big question. I am originally from the US, but I am currently a creative coach, like you said, consultant. I've worked as an educator before, but really who I am is somebody who has always been in this situation where I help people when they're at a crossroads. So it's brought me to many places. And I've been an expat now for over 11 years, 1 year in Korea. And then I came here and I've been here for about 11 years. So it's been a long time in China.
Wow,
And I think more than anything else, what I am is really a creative spirit who really wants to help people.
wow, that's so wonderful. You have stayed in China for 11 good years?
Yeah, about 11. I think it's going to be 11 this summer, I think.
And what is keeping you in China? What is?
Well, there's so much opportunity here. I've been in Shanghai the whole time. When I first came here, I came
Yeah.
here for a job. I was working at an international school as an art teacher because I did that for over 20 years. And
Yeah.
then I was supposed to be going down to Indonesia, but COVID happened. And so
Oh,
when that happened, I couldn't get the visa and they wouldn't let me move my cats. And Indonesia at that time was like no animals from China. So I said, okay, I can't take this fabulous job. So
yeah.
I had 6 weeks to change everything and react. And I got a job and a new apartment within those 6 weeks to start at another international school. But that was only a 1 year position. And so
Yeah.
then after that, I said, you know what? I'm just going to become an entrepreneur. I had a friend who said I'll invest, and we opened a beautiful, big, renovated wellness center that we designed. And then COVID happened, the lockdown, and that shuttered my business. We couldn't do it. We couldn't stay open. We couldn't afford to keep it open because it was so many weeks, so many months. And then I had another couple weeks where I had to pivot. And so I did that. But the beautiful thing was, as challenging as that was here, and
Yes.
most people do not know how challenging it was, right? The people who came
Yeah.
together and the community that I felt here was truly amazing. I mean, I have so many stories of people who did such kind things for me during that lockdown period, and it really told me something. And then I
Yeah.
decided, all my connections are here, my business ties are here. The economy in my home country in the USA is not doing well, and I still have things I want to finish here. So I'm still staying here. I actually just renewed my my lease. I'll be here for at least another year, probably two.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a beautiful place once you get to see the beauty of it.
Wow. Before even talking about you coming to China, do you remember the first thing you knew about China growing up?
The food. I But what's really funny is American Chinese, it's
Yeah.
a whole nother thing. But I really loved Asian food, and I would always have my family go to get it. I started teaching myself how to use chopsticks when I was young.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and I really loved it. I also remember we went down to Disney when I was very young, like maybe 8 or 10 years old. And we went to
Yeah.
Epcot Center, which is like the international. And I remember that I just loved the Asian things, the Japanese place, and all of that, and that kind of got me interested in the
Yeah.
culture. But really, I never thought that I was going to be here. I didn't even like have it on my I had on my bucket list to see the Great Wall because everybody does, right? It's a wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Like, of course you do. But I never thought that I'd be working here. It was a surprise.
And surprise, how did you end up being in China then?
Well, when I had this epiphany that I wanted to be international. So I sold my business and everything in the USA and I moved to Korea. But the school that I worked for went bankrupt in like 2 months. It happens a lot in Korea.
Oh,
People don't know that. At least it used to. I hope that they have laws to protect people now, but they didn't
yeah.
then. And we had to find ways to fund the school and stay open. I became vice principal for a while, which was crazy because I literally had no training for that whatsoever. But we managed to stay open and get the kids through. Well, during that turbulent time, teachers,
Yes.
especially international ones, we get our jobs way ahead of time. A lot of the people don't realize that teachers have to pretty much decide their next school year life many
Yeah.
months ahead of time. It's not like a corporate job. Like a corporate job, you can give like 2 weeks or a month or 2 months notice and then start a new job. You can't do that
Yeah.
really for teaching. So our jobs are usually hired for international people, sometimes even the October or November, the school year beforehand. So
Oh,
I went to a job fair. I got quite a few nice offers, and the one here in Shanghai was the best. And that's so after my year in Korea ended, I ended up here.
wow. You mentioned you wanted to be international. What do
Mhm.
you mean by international?
I wanted to be able to travel. Even back then in the USA, it was really, really difficult to make enough money to really to thrive. So I was actually having my own art school, art studio business at the same
Wow.
time as working full time. And I was, I don't even know how I didn't burn out because I did it for 6 years, man. I did it for 6 years.
Wow.
And one day I was looking at my favorite DVDs. Yeah, it was a while ago, guys. There was DVDs. And I was looking at my DVDs and my favorite ones were all in one little place.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I realized that these 30 to 40 DVDs that were the ones I kept watching over and over the most, that I liked the
Yeah.
most, they were all stories of somebody who had gone out of their country or gone to a new place and changed their life. All of them.
Yeah.
Eat, Pray, Love, Letters to Juliet, Under the Tuscan Sun, like every single one of
What
them.
a
And I looked at,
coincidence.
yeah, I looked at him and I said, Alysia, what are you doing? Like, this is it clear. You've been watching these movies. Get the hello, like a face palm, right? And
Yeah.
then I had a friend who was teaching in Senegal, and I
Yeah.
sent her a message on Facebook. I said, okay, how do I do this international teaching thing? And then the rest is history. Yeah.
Wow. And you ended up first in Korea.
Yes. In Seoul.
What moved you to Korea? Is it because of the opportunities there?
Yeah, it was the opportunity. But, there's a couple of other reasons. First of all, I always wanted to come to Asia. I had toured a little bit of Africa already because I did some study in Kenya when I was in college.
Oh,
And I also had really loved Europe. I did some touring there. So I had seen, and
yeah.
some South America I had gone. So I really loved the idea of Asia. I wanted to look more into Buddhism and things like that as well. But the
Yeah.
other reason is because when you looked at jobs, and I think this still happens a little bit, a lot of the jobs for international people in Asia, the pay is a lot more of a difference than the cost of living. So you can usually save more money here than you can. Everybody knows, especially in international teaching, it's very hard to find a job in Europe and save any money. Like, you'll have a good quality of life because it's Europe, right? So it's great. But the amount of money that you're going to save is not much. Yeah.
Oh, wow. But the currency is also a little bit lower than the US dollar. So how, I think it's almost the same.
When I came, it isn't actually. It still isn't. When I came here, though, I was paid American dollars.
Really?
Yeah, but then they changed that on us like a couple of years in, and we're like, man. And then, of course, the RMB started shifting. But still, even now, the cost of living here, I think, even in this big city in Shanghai, if you are eating a lot more vegetables and local foods and things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's actually affordable compared to some of the things. I went back home this last summer and I had sticker shock. I was like, $7.50 for a Ben and Jerry's, like little one. I was like,
what
happened? I was gone out of the US for 4 years and I came back and I was like, everything's twice as expensive. But so I still love the opportunities here. And again, I still do love the people. So it's worth it to stay for those people who have the opportunities here that they want to explore. Yeah.
Wow. So we can say that there are opportunities in China more than in the US?
I think there's different opportunities in both places. And to be honest, you can make opportunities anywhere if you're creative. So to be honest, for what I'm doing right now, I feel that this is a good place for me to be. The way that we live is pretty nice, but I have a lot of friends here, and I have a whole it's a second family. I call it my Shanghai family. I've been here for over 10 years and I really appreciate them. And I still can go home and see my family now that most of the craziness is over. So for me, it works. Also, as a coach and a trainer, it works well because I get to do a lot of in-person interactions and I get to work. I mean, because I'm here, I've gotten to work with companies. Like, sometimes it's little things that I freelance for, but like Lego, like Lego and Ferrari and M&G and, all of these really amazing companies. And I get to just even do some writing or I got to coach for a medical clinic. And these are things that if I went to the US, it would be a different kind of job market, a different kind of level of competition. Here, as far as I know, I'm the only creative coach in the country officially that's at least foreigner. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So after ending up in China, what are some of the culture shock you faced during the early days?
Okay, I'm sorry I'm going to have to do this to you, but I don't get culture shock. I know that seems weird, but I really don't. Even when I went to study in Africa, a lot of people were like, in Kenya, they had a culture shock. I didn't.
Yes.
I'm pretty flexible, and where a lot of people see differences, I really look for similarities. So when people came here, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so different. And for me, I walk outside the door and I see a mother who's, walking their little kid to school with a backpack. Well, that's just like home. I see the girls in the beauty salon talking as they're getting their nails done. That could be anywhere in the world. So when you look for the similarities and you realize that people are people and you focus more on the humanity of it, then everything that's different becomes an adventure. And then it's not as shocking. So that's how I like to stay connected, I think.
Wow. Interesting to hear that. Apart from you not having culture shock, what are some of the challenges you faced at the beginning?
Okay, first of all, y'all have to know that I was here over 10 years ago. So we didn't have Didi, like the app to get the taxis. So
Yes.
you had to go out in the street and you had to either have something that had the Chinese on it or something to get the car. And you had to
Oh.
wait till a taxi would pick you up. There are times in the rain where I couldn't get a taxi for like 2 hours. And it was night and the metros were closed because the metros here aren't 24 hours. They don't do that here. That was one of the challenges, was the transportation. The other big
Transportation.
challenge, and it was even worse for me because
Yeah.
that summer before I came, I broke my ankle. I had a double broken ankle. So
Oh.
my cast literally came off like 2 days before I got on the plane to come here. So I entered China on a wheelchair with a
Oh.
boot, with a cat and 5 suitcases. So it was probably absolutely hilarious. I'm sure that somebody took a video of this crazy woman who entered like this. So that was a big challenge for me because I wanted to see everything. And
Yeah.
I was walking, and one day I felt like this really weird sensation. And my sister, who's a physician's assistant, she's a doctor in that way. I sent
Yeah.
her a video and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Alysia, you're swelling and it's really bad. Like if you keep this up, you're going to go to the hospital." So I had to pretty much lay down for most of the first couple weeks that I was in Shanghai to heal, to
Wow.
fully heal. But the beautiful thing was that here, even then, they
Yeah.
had food delivery.
Oh,
So
wow. That
I
was
was able
each
to
year?
get exactly. I used to use Sherpas, is the brand here, and I still use them. And they were able to bring me food to my apartment. So that was just so important to me because it was hard for me to stand long to cook, and it was very, very helpful. Yeah. But those were two of the biggest challenges. And I think the final challenge for me was really just getting my bearings as to how I wanted to fit in to this culture. Like I thought, hey, I'm here 3 to 5 years maybe, and then I'm going.
Yes.
Most people will tell you that, by the way, right, Dax? Most people will tell you, oh, I came to
Yeah.
China, I'm just going to be here
Just
a
for two
year,
years.
right?
Yeah.
1 or 2 years, and then 20 years later, they're still here. Like, so I was like, oh, that won't be me. I want to travel. Here I am.
You said you wanted to fit in. What do you mean by fit in?
I really believe in community. I believe in community. I believe in this feeling of working with people. And so when you move to a new place as an expat, you have several things. You have the community where you live. You have the community of close friends and kind of the expat family you build.
Yeah.
And you have the community of your workplace. And then you also have the community of the city as a whole.
Yeah.
Right. And the expat world is a small one, right? So there's lots of people. When you're an expat, you usually if know somebody who knows somebody. Like it just happens all the time,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? It's a thing. So I didn't really, it was my first, because the year in Korea was so crazy with everything that happened. I was
Yes.
never able to really feel settled there. And I really wanted China to be a 3 to 5 year home. I wanted it to feel like home here. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So, those who have just joined this live today, we are joined with one special guest, Alysia. She has lived in China for over 11 years, and this is episode 11 of How Has China Impacted Your Life series. Every week, we bring special guests to share their experience about living in China with us. Wow. After fitting in, trying to fit into the society, into China, what other challenge did you face apart from those you mentioned?
Well, I think one of the things that I faced was very, very short time after I got here. The school that I was working for had a
Yeah.
decline in enrollment. And
Oh,
so the feeling of financial pressure hit the school. And whenever you have any workplace that starts to have financial concerns
yes.
without super strong leadership, you get scarcity mindset that just comes in. People are afraid of losing their budgets. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid
Yeah.
of losing their power. And that can become almost like a sickness in the culture. And I knew I had been in schools where this happened before. And so I think that that became one of the biggest struggles. And I tried to warn some of the people that I knew in leadership, but in the end, things just it got challenging. It got very challenging. So I think that was one of the biggest things I had to deal with. I think the other thing that was a big challenge for me is I do love my family. I'm close with my family, and
Yeah.
I had young nieces. Right, I had a young
Oh.
niece. She's not young anymore. She's like 12, but
She's mature
she
now.
was very young then. She was like 2 or 3, and I really loved her, and I still do. And it's still hard to this day, honestly, to be away from them as much as I am. But I see
Yeah.
them as much as I can in video call. But I think that that is a challenge that I knew would be hard, but I underestimated it.
Wow, interesting. How was the feeling after leaving Korea because of this same financial crisis, only to end up in China with the same situation? How was that feeling?
Well, I have to be honest, it's happened in every single school I've taught in for over 20 years. And and I was an art teacher. And one of the unfortunate things is that it's probably starting to change a little, but one of the current problems that we have in education is that there is such a focus on the traditional subjects.
Yeah.
And now they're focusing on science and technology, right?
Yes.
They call it STEM, right?
Same.
Science,
Yeah.
technology, engineering, and math, right? Which
Yes.
is of course very important. I don't discount that. And then they realized that that was killing the arts, because now if you're saying that you have to up these other things and the schools only have this much money, they got to find the money to build this up from somewhere. And
Yeah.
so in most schools, the arts were suffering. It happened in the US. And that's why I thought if I went to international education, they're more well funded and they have a more global perspective. So I
Yeah.
thought, okay, it's going to be better. And then I went to that school, and the first thing is they were already going to cut the department. And then the second thing is that then the school was going to close, which it eventually did. Right.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, this is just a rare thing. It's an anomaly. This is just weird. And then I came down to this school, which is considered one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And 1 year in, they're talking financial issues and cutbacks and layoffs. And I was like, and of course, I'm having to justify the importance of the art department that I'm in. I literally had to write a
Yeah.
10-page paper and justification of why our jobs shouldn't be cut. And that's why it just kept happening. So after COVID, I lost when that position got cut again. So we had a
Yes.
position cut, we hired somebody else in, and then the position was cut again. So after that, I went
Yeah.
to this other school for a year, and that position was cut. They cut that department too. And
Wait, that position was also art, or you went into a different field?
it was also art. It was also art education. So after 2 times where positions were either cut or replaced by a cheaper local hire,
Yeah.
I just said, if I'm going to have all this instability, like one of the reasons you get a 9 to 5 job is stability, right?
Yes.
Well, if I'm going to be unstable with my job, I might as well just be an entrepreneur, because then it's going to be hard, but the risk, the payoff could be a lot higher, right? If you
Yeah.
work it, if you're a good entrepreneur, if you make it work, I could definitely double or triple the money that I was making, and possibly have better impact on people in a way that was more authentic
Yeah.
to and aligned with my values. And
Wow.
that's why I made the shift.
Wow. Interesting. Before even making the shift, why did you even go into arts? Did you have passion for that?
Uh, I did. I loved art. I was good at it when I was a kid. My mother is very creative. She was actually an accountant, but she was also a cake decorator. And I think that if she had different opportunities when she was younger, she would have been an amazing art teacher actually. And so I was allowed to do that. Some people would
Yeah.
always say, don't be an artist, you won't make enough money. My family was
Yeah.
never like that. My father actually started in art, and then he moved to architecture in college. So I was in a very supportive entrepreneurial kind of household. But
Yes.
what happened was I was very mature for my age, and I decided very early on that I should pick what career I was going to go for, because then I could put all my energy into it.
Into that.
So
Yeah.
at 9 years old, I decided to be an art
To go
teacher.
into art.
And the
Oh.
reason I actually remember myself sitting and thinking about this and journaling, because I was even journaling at that time. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? I always find myself helping people. So I always was helping people, tutoring people, teaching them. I said, okay, I should be a teacher. So that was the first step. And then the second step, I said to myself, what is the most important thing that I feel people need to learn to make the world a better place? Because I was very into that even as a child. And
Interesting.
I chose art because I always saw that art was in everything and everything was a part of art. I saw it as the grand connector. Now, back then, I was too young to realize that really the connector is the creativity. But art was
Yeah.
the way to teach that. So I chose in ninth grade, and I didn't look back on, until I started doing entrepreneur as well. Yeah.
Wow. You had a passion and a dream at the age of 9, only to give up at some point.
Well, so here's what happens, right? And I think a lot of people have this. I even have some clients, coaching clients, who are like this. You have
Yeah.
these dreams when you're young, and if you work really
Yeah.
hard and you make it happen, what happens once you reach them when you're like 30? By the age of 30, I had won a national teaching award. Like
Wow.
I was actually nominated as the best middle school art teacher in the USA. And so, and I won the Eastern, I won middle school art teacher of the East in the USA. And so
Interesting.
and so I reached that. Like at age 30, I had it, like I'd already reached that dream.
Yeah.
Then to see it kind of crumbling around me as I saw the society devaluing the arts, right? So
Yeah.
I think if that hadn't happened, I would have left teaching even earlier. But then I tried this international school thing, and I feel like I love teaching. I love the kids. Absolutely love the kids. I love making lessons. I loved the conversations we would have. And honestly, I was more of a coach in a lot of ways uh,
Yeah.
than a teacher near the end, which is awesome because it worked out really well. But in the end, you get to a point where
Yeah.
is that really still my dream? And I think that part of this is back when I was making these decisions, coaching wasn't a thing. It wasn't even a profession.
Yeah.
Creativity coaching was developed 30 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
right around when I was graduating high school, like, that was developed. So, I didn't even know that this was a career
What
path.
it's
And
about. Yeah.
right. So I think that that's also a part of it. And I think that part of what we need to do as people, if we really want to stay creative and innovative, is that
Yes.
we don't have to stay in situations, even if we've invested a lot of time and energy in it, we can take the best of that and use
Yeah.
it towards a new profession or a new way of life. And that's
Yes.
why.
So after getting that award, do you think you have fulfilled that dream or that passion to move on to another direction?
Yes, I feel like my life as a visual art teacher was amazing. I love what I was able to do with people. I love the things that I got out of it, the people that I met, the kids I got to work with. I'm honored that I got to do that, honestly. But I'm also very happy that I'm in a new stage where I can creatively design my life the way I want to and design my work the way that I want to. And I haven't given up on education because I'm still a part-time professor for MBA
Oh,
students. Okay?
wow.
And I do
Yeah.
some coaching. I do some coaching of younger students, but it's more coaching. So working on confidence and things like that. I do corporate trainings where I'm teaching people about creativity and innovation. So I'm still
Interesting.
really teaching, but now I'm just doing it in different
In a different
ways.
way. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Before we even talk about you moving to a different direction, during COVID,
Mhm.
the American government organized to evacuate most Americans from China. Why did you decide to stay?
Couple of things. First of all, I had my startup here. And if there was any chance of saving it, I had to stay. We had spent a million RMB literally renovating the space. I did the architecture for it. We created it. We did the whole brand, the launch. I mean, it was like over a year of work just getting this thing together. That was one reason. The
Yeah.
second reason was that I have so much stuff here. Like my whole life is here. This is my home. And to move during COVID, I didn't really have the resources or the energy to do that. And I had three cats at the time. So, emergency evacuating myself and three cats is kind of plus the US was even worse with COVID in a lot of ways, right? And then the last reason is because what happened
Yes.
was, and this is why I think I was meant to stay here. I had my business was a wellness center. So at this time, I was one of the central influencers, if you will, for wellness for expats in the city.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was I was one of the people who helped some of the coaches, a lot of the coaches, and people to get through the tough time
Yeah.
here. I started a show. I even had a show here, but it wasn't like a YouTube. It was just here and
Yeah.
on
In China.
and
Yeah.
in China. And I had a weekly show for wellness where I had different experts coming on and I interviewed them, but they gave their presentations and they taught people mental health, physical health, meditation, mindfulness, the things that people needed. And I literally had people sending me messages saying, I really was thinking of taking my life. And if it wasn't for your show, I think I would have killed myself. And you look at these things and realize the impact that just me having this show, and I wasn't even the speaker all the time. And
Yeah.
just
Just
giving
organizing.
that space, right? Just like you're giving this space for these interviews, just providing
Yes.
that space really helped a lot of people. And so I feel like I don't give up on things very easily. And so that's I just all of those things combined, I just decided that this is where I was meant to stay.
Wow. You called China home, a place you just stayed within 5 years, as compared to a place you were born, grew up from, where your family and everybody is, but you called China home.
Yes, I mean, I would say USA is also a home. I have two homes. I have my home there, but I don't have my own property there. I go there and I see my family. Uh, my family is there, so that part of my home is there. But my cats, all of my things, all of my most of my friends, they're all most of them are here now. And so, yeah, I do think that this is also my home.
Wow. Interesting. I can see you love pets so much, especially cats.
Yeah, they're both sleeping over there in the corner. Yeah.
Wow. How was the challenges or the feeling, the situation during COVID? Because we could hear in other countries where they were talking about China COVID, China COVID. How was the situation whilst in China?
Well, I'm going to be very honest. I will say a little bit, but one of the things that we learn here is that we
Yeah.
can't really speak a lot of negativity. I mean, I'm a guest in this country, so there's
Yes.
some things that I don't want to say much negative. I will say that what happened here in Shanghai,
Yes.
very unless you were here, you don't know. You just don't know it. I haven't heard of it being as restricted as it was anywhere else, And at that time, I had a wellness center that I couldn't have open. So we opened, and 2 months later, the restrictions started. We were
Yes.
open for like one little month, and then it was like in March, and then it was shut. Like literally, I was in my apartment for 3 months. That's just the way it was. There were a lot of challenges, but the government also, gave food, and the local committee that was here in my building was just so incredibly nice to me. I was very lucky. They gave me
Wow.
food. They gave me more food than I needed. I can't even. One of the times when we went down for
Yes.
testing, there was a little kid who went to the school I used to teach at, right?
Yeah.
And he recognized me even with my mask on, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, and he whispered to his mom, and his mom's like, "Did you work at this school?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And
Yeah.
they said it was really funny. uh and he said, "Yeah, he remembers you, but you didn't teach him because he was too young, but he remembers you, right?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's really sweet." The next day, I open up my door, and there is a bag of vegetables with a
Wow.
note with a note saying, "The students of your school love you, and they're still thinking of you." Who does that? And I don't know if you
Yes.
understand, but a bag of vegetables at that time,
Yeah.
that
During
was
COVID.
that was
So precious.
yeah, like we couldn't shop. So like that was, I mean, I got tears in my eyes. And acts of kindness like that happened to me a lot here during COVID. So I think what happened was, it was traumatic for a lot of people, especially extroverts, people who are very, very outgoing. I'm an
Yeah.
introvert. I love people, but I actually am an introvert, so I get my energy. So I'm fine staying home. I'm okay. I've got all my workout equipment, I got my art materials.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it was very challenging. And I think that the city is still processing the psychological effects of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
uh, we're still working through all of that. But on the other hand, the sense of community that it brought, a lot of people are
Yeah.
also still talking about. Now I know the people in
Yeah.
my building. They're all nice to me. I still don't speak Chinese, but they still are nice to me in the elevator, and they try to talk to me. And yeah.
Wow. How did that challenges during that period of COVID impact you or change you? How was the impact on you?
Well, a couple of strange things happen. The first strange thing that I didn't see coming was really fully realizing how much of an introvert I am, and how much I really do like working from home. I love being with people in
Yeah.
doses, right? But I
Yeah.
really do like being and working from home. So it shifted the way I wanted to work. That was one. The second thing
Okay.
is that everybody kept saying to me, Alysia, why are you so positive? How are you so positive with all this happening? Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't, I don't think about it. I just am. Right. And I thought about it and I
You
made a
just,
little video and I called it the make the most of it mindset. I did this little video. I put it on
yeah.
WeChat and all of a sudden, like 1,000 people saw it. And I was
Wow.
like, I never thought 1,000 people would care what I say. And I just was like really surprised. So then I started to do more media to help people. So I kind of came out of the shadows. Even though I had this business, I was really promoting other people. And so now I stepped out of the shadows and helped people. I also started writing
Yes.
again. So I
Wow.
wrote an article called what was it called? It was about creatively it was like how to heal from like creatively. And
Yeah.
that article got over 1,000 reads. Everybody was shocked because that normally doesn't happen on that
Interesting.
media, right?
Yeah.
And so then I started writing again, and that was also beautiful. Another thing that changed me was I had to go all online for my business. So I really had to get good at things like this, being on
Yeah.
screens, being on Zoom, being on interviews.
Yeah.
I did more public speaking during COVID. You wouldn't even believe. I was on like webinars and people were asking me to speak for Toastmasters.
Programs.
So
Yes.
I basically became a public speaker during lockdown, which is very weird,
Wow.
but it happened. And then the last thing was
Yes.
financially, it it pretty much decimated me. All right? I have to be honest. I had a startup, guys. When you have a startup, you don't have much money. And then all of a sudden, your startup can't make any money
Yeah.
and you're stuck. It was rough. I got down to 30 RMB. For those of you at
Really?
home, for those of you at home, that's about $4 to $5. That's all I had. And I cried because I didn't know how I was going to feed my cats. I really literally didn't know how I was going to feed them. One of them has allergies, so he needs a special food. I was really, really worried. And I let myself be sad for like a day. And then I said, okay, I need a solution. So I did something else that I was not good at, and that was I asked for help. And
Wow.
up until that point, I was not as good at that, but I had to. I was helping all these other people, but I wasn't getting it myself. So I asked for
Yeah.
help and I got a group of people together to just give me their ideas and their thoughts. And they gave me ideas that helped me get through COVID. And then the last thing that really changed me was
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Let's continue.
Whoever's watching
Yeah.
this video, if you're the one who called Dax, this is bad timing. You need to pay attention. He has live
Exactly.
streaming. He's live streaming. Anyway, so the last thing that happened that was really important was because my business failed. It was actually a blessing in disguise because I knew that deep down I wanted a life now that was more at home, and I wanted a life where I could be more international and maybe
Yeah.
eventually do more nomadic travel. And having a center, you just can't do
Yeah.
that. So when the finances got bad, I had it was make it or break it. It was stuff is on the line, right? That's it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so I had no choice. I had to go into action and I had about 2 weeks to completely transform my business to make enough money to be able to survive. So I went straight into coaching and consulting full time again. And within 2 weeks, I was able to start paying bills again. And that was a lesson to me that I could do it. It was a lesson to me in action, and it was a lesson in resilience. And all of those things impacted me. So, yeah, was it tough? Was it hard? Yeah, but in the end, I still think that it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Wow. Will you say that during that COVID time was one of the most challenging times in your life?
I would say yes. I was working literally about literally 16 to 20 hours a day. I'm not kidding. Because there was one time where I was on the screen so much because all of my wellness and all these people needed help. So I was on the screen. My eyes went blurry and I have really good vision. And I had to go to sleep because I literally couldn't see. That's how much eye strain I had. Um,
Yeah.
but I still think if I look back on things, it still wasn't actually the most challenging time of my life. I've been
Yeah.
through a lot. So it was tough. It's probably in the top 5, but it wasn't the hardest.
Wow. Interesting. During those times, what made you think that coaching would be the next avenue for you? There were several fields. Why coaching?
Well, the coaching I was doing even while I was doing my wellness center. So I got my certifications. I had been doing coaching for a long time. I remember being like 8 years old and talking to one of my mom's friends and like giving her advice. And she was
Wow.
and I remember this would happen with adults all the time. They would just tell me things, when I was a kid. So I mean, in all fairness,
Interesting.
they really probably shouldn't have, but they would tell me stuff and I would give them suggestions and they'd be like, "You're very wise for your age." And they were always surprised. And I didn't
Yeah.
really think anything of it. But coaching to me is a way of helping people to transform. And I think that naturally the universe was already doing that all the time. Always there were people who were coming into my life who were at a crossroads and they needed help. And so I had been doing that for my whole life. So when it could become an actual profession where I could even use my skills because I already had a degree in psychology and I could
Yeah.
actually use that it just naturally made sense. So when the business failed, coaching, I was already coaching. I just took that little part of what my revenue streams and
Yeah.
I just made that the big one. That's all. I just switched it.
Wow. So we can say that during that period of COVID made you considered coaching as one of your best qualities or investing in that quality.
I always knew that that was one of my things. I was always a coach. I was a certified coach before COVID, right? But
Yeah.
I think the first COVID in 2020, when that
Yeah.
happened, and then I couldn't, and then the whole job thing happened, I already knew in my mind I was going to become a coach. Like I had already researched everything. I'd said, okay, what aligns? And I knew that coaching is one of the biggest, this whole personal development coaching is one of the largest growing things as a profession.
Yeah.
And I have more experience than a lot of people. So I said, you know what, this is good. But I really think that, yeah, the big thing about it is you get to help people and you get to help them in a way that is personal, that is creative, on your own terms, as your own boss. I mean, of course you have to follow regulations for your certification because
Yeah.
you don't want to, you want to be responsible. So I am certified. But yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Before we even talk about the next stage when you started coaching, I want to divert it in a small way. After coming to China as a beautiful young American lady, how
Not that
has
young. But
how
sorry.
has how has the Chinese men relating to you in terms of relationship?
I haven't dated many Chinese men here. I've dated, I did, there was one guy and another guy that I considered. But this is an international city. So the people that I've dated are international. When I first came here, I was finishing up my second relationship with somebody who I kind of thought I thought we were married, but there was some document issues in his country. So, but that was okay because it had to end.
Yeah.
And then I was here and I didn't date for a little while because I just wanted some time to focus on enjoying life
Yourself?
and traveling and everything. And then I started dating again, and I met my last husband, but he was actually from Togo in Africa, West Africa. And so I was married to him. And then right before COVID, unfortunately, we had to end that because he had some issues that he had to resolve.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I would not like us to go much into that. I was thinking you had some relationship with Chinese personally, but
I
it
I
was,
think I think the thing is that there's a lot of cultural differences, and a lot of the culture here, it's beautiful because they're very much about community, and they have privacy, but a lot of their culture is also things like traditional values, right?
yeah,
There's a lot of traditional values here. There's more of a quiet energy. I There's a lot of workaholic tendencies that tend to be here in men and women, right?
yeah,
Um, and I had a previous marriage where the workaholic thing was already an issue. So for me, I just don't feel like at that point or so far there's been anybody whose energy really resonated with me, not just energy but culturally. But I do think that there are a lot of really great opportunities here for people to date. There is interesting dating culture. It's a little bit harder now because like 90% of the expats left in the last 3 years. So
yeah,
the whole dating pool kind of went from ocean to lake, but it's okay.
yeah. But I think they are now coming back. Anyways, so how has coaching been?
Yeah.
How has the journey of being a coach been?
It has.
Hello. Hello, lovely people. If you just joined today, we are joined with our special guest, Alysia. She has stayed in China for over 11 good years. And today, she's sharing a lot about her life experience living in China as an expert. If you are already here, you can join this live if you have any question to ask with the link I'm about to send now. If you have any question to ask her, you can type or you can join through audio or video. Thank you very much for staying tuned. And yeah, hello, Alysia. Are you there? I think her network is disconnected. Thank you very much for staying tuned and for connecting. On this platform, we bring special guests who has lived in China for several years to share their experience living in a society or a country of different culture, different way of life, and everything with us so that this can impact your life if you are thinking of traveling or leaving your country to another country. Next week, if God willing, we'll be having a special guest. He is a Chinese lawyer who will be telling us all the laws, rules, and regulations we should know as experts in China. And if you want to start your business in China, hi, Alicia. Welcome back.
This is one of the downsides is you never know when something like that's going to happen, especially with national platforms like this. So sorry
Yeah,
about. So go ahead.
it's
The coaching.
it's normal. It's normal. So I was asking about how has coaching, the journey of being a coach been?
You know, the interesting thing is coaching is such an amazing opportunity to learn about people, to empathize. And while you're going through this training, you always have to get coached yourself, right? You can't be a coach and never been coached. It doesn't make sense. That would be like you're going to be a baseball player never played baseball with anybody. This doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, what people always I find underestimate is that you are going to find out a whole lot about yourself. You're going to find out, and including stuff that you didn't know you had to confront. So I think that coaching has really helped me to develop as a person and as a professional, to see a lot of the things that I needed to work on. And then as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur thing does the same thing. So when you're an entrepreneur, you have to go to places where you have to find that drive, that passion, that resilience, that problem solving. You have to do that, and you have to find that. And if you have any resistance or mindset issues, it will mess up your business. So the hard thing is, when you go into a coaching entrepreneurial business, you got like double that. So it's like double the self-reflection, double the personal development. So it's not easy, but of course, anything that's really worth having isn't totally easy, is it? Right?
Wow.
So it's very rewarding. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So far, what have you been able to achieve being a coach?
Well, I have to say, crazy thing that's happened so far is I was just looking at all my logs because I take notes, and I can honestly say that I've had about 600 sessions for well over 1,000 hours of coaching in the last 20 months.
Wow.
So that's a lot. And that's not even the trainings or the teachings or the team coaching things or the programs that I do. That's separate. So I look at that. I also feel like I've come out now as a public speaker, I don't know if I really would have said yes to even doing a show like this 3 or 4 years ago. It's really helped me to kind of own who I am and be even more authentic and okay with that. So I think, I'm happy that it hasn't been easy, still isn't easy sometimes, but I still don't regret any choices that I've made so far.
Wow. As being a coach within this period, what advice will you give to people searching for jobs or looking for jobs?
Okay, so I have a whole platform for this called Flex My Career that we've been doing 1.5 years, and we just launched the website recently. And what I tell everybody is, really, the future is unstable, right? I'm an optimist. You guys have already heard that. I always have the make the most of it mindset, but you also have to be practical. And I think the practical thing now is that we can't rely on things that we thought we could rely on before. People thought they could rely on teaching jobs and those get cut. People thought that they were safe in their corporate jobs. There are people who've been working in jobs for 20 years and they got their salary cut because the company had to reduce it. Nobody sees that coming, right?
Yes.
So what I would say is, anybody right now who is looking at changing their career or shifting their career or looking to solidify, make sure that you're upskilling on a regular basis, that you're staying current, that you're always following your passion on the side, even if it's a side thing, always doing something that you love to do. Because if something happens, that thing that you love to do could become your new job. So you want multiple revenue streams, investments, things like that. And I think that the other thing is, when there are times like this where the world is a little crazy, the best thing that we can do is to be creative, of course, and strategic. So you want to have different options and keep as many possibilities open and aware, so that if something happens, you can have the resilience to bounce back from it.
Wow. I think this is so powerful. You talked about having multiple streams. Do you think we can follow our passion at the same when we are looking at multiple streams?
Of course. There are stories all over where people followed their dreams and they did it. I was on this thing. There's this famous coach, Stu McLaren, and he does this thing on memberships, right? And
Yes.
he was talking about one of the people who had done his course, who has made like thousands of dollars on a membership. And in the membership,
Yes.
they make, I'm not kidding you, they make felt mushrooms. So they take fabric and make little mushrooms. And this woman just loved to make, and apparently there's a whole community of people out there who just like to make little mushrooms out of felt. And she followed her passion, and she's making thousands of dollars on this membership. And so I think the internet and everything that's happening is allowing us to realize that we can find different tribes. We can find different ways and creative ways to make different revenue streams based on our passion. I know some people say never do what you love or never do what you love, then it becomes a job. I think they're wrong, personally. I think that you can do what you love every day, best you can, as long as you are and strategic.
Yes.
You can be doing what you love every day. And shouldn't that really be what you do? I don't understand how people, I don't understand why people would settle for less than that.
Wow. I'm sure so many people will be inspired by how you are talking and how you are guiding people. Where can people reach you if they want any kind of coaching?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. So for the people in the West, and I say LinkedIn is probably the best. I am the only Alysia Lee Asp in the world, as far as I know. So you can look me up there. And for those people who are in China, then you can find me on WeChat. Is still the best way to find me. And that's just Alysia Lee Asp, all one word, and lowercase letters. And that you can get a hold of me. Just let me know that you've seen me here from this so that I know that you're authentic and not a creeper.
Wow. Another question I would like to ask is you do coaching, but
Yes.
what is your specialty in this kind of coaching? Do you coach everyone?
This is really interesting. I've had a lot of conversations about this. Typically, the people that I work with are usually professionals, typically who are usually around 30 to 50 years old, sometimes a little less or a little older, but in range. And they're people who have education of some type, and they want something more, right? Because to come to a crossroads like that means that you've had to travel before you get to the crossroads. So the people who come to me most of the time are those. Now, I have coached young children, right, with their parents there. I have coached college students. I have coached all those different ways. But primarily, a lot of the people I work with are professionals. And it's anybody or businesses that want a change. They feel stuck, right? You get to this point, I did at one point, where I've achieved what I wanted to. It didn't feel right. I wasn't quite happy. I felt stuck. I didn't know what my options were. I didn't know what to do. This is what people say to me. And then I like to help them. Those are the people where I'm like, okay, let's get to it. Let's creatively find your possibilities. Let's get awareness. And then let's have fun picking one and then strategize how we're going to go for it. I love that.
Wow. Interesting. So as a coach, how will you coach, or what do you have to tell me as the host of this podcast in 1 minute?
All right. I'm going to give you the professional business coaching. I think that, I like the fact that you're working on your branding. Your logo is good. This is really good. I think what people would really like to see too is that in some of these, when I've responded, we'd like to hear a little bit more of your reaction, or something that you've gone through or that you've done that relates to some of the things that are saying. Because one of the most powerful things we can do to connect to people is to share our stories and to share our vulnerability, right? So when your guest gives an example of something, you can also say, you know, in this case, this happened to me and I can relate to this because of this. I think it will help the people here, and people can put in the comments if you agree with that, that people can also get to know you better a little bit through these interviews as well.
Wow. I must say I really needed this. Guys, after this, I'm just going for my coaching, and I know you also need this kind of coaching. So after this session, I'll be putting a link where you can reach her directly, her contacts, where you can reach her for any kind of coaching, any direction in any sphere of your life as we are enduring. Before we end this conversation, how has China impacted your life?
I think China has really helped me to see that there is a lot of beauty and humanity everywhere. And that if we really look past the hype and past the media and past the politics, underneath everything are people who are just trying to be happy. And if we can put ourselves in that human place of compassion and empathy and understanding, it doesn't matter where we go in the world, we can connect with people.
Wow. We can connect with people indeed. I never thought I could have somebody like you, an American, to have a conversation with you today as we are having, all because of China. This is so powerful and so inspirational. What are your last words for any American doubting of coming to China?
I just want everybody to know that the people are not the politics. And that this country has so many beautiful things to offer. And it's not perfect, but we know our country isn't either. So to anybody from the USA who's watching this, I would just say, please keep your mind open and look past the media and start looking for the beauty here, and get out of the USA and go and travel somewhere so that your cultural understanding and your mind can be open to the possibilities of the different connections that are out there beyond what people are trying to feed you on screens.
What are others trying to feed them with?
I think, I mean, all media in all countries and stuff are you know, they're creating the narrative, and they are creating different patterns for people to think, and they are presenting stories in certain ways. I know that a lot of journalists try to do their best to be unbiased, but we are biased creatures. We're judgmental creatures. So I think the best thing to do is to really experience things for ourselves, so that we're not trusting somebody else's view of something the way that it is shared with us.
Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you very much, Alysia. I'm so glad to have you today and being open to share all your challenges, all your feelings, and everything with us today. And we can't wait to have you more in the future, where you'll be talking much about your business in China. Thank you very much. And if you have any contact details or your last words to say before we end this conversation.
I just want to thank you so much for holding this space and for the questions and the curiosity to care about my journey. I appreciate that, and the ability to share it. And I really just hope that somebody watching here finds some value or something that they get out of it. And if you do, you know, share it in the chat, because if you share it, it could inspire somebody else to do the same, and spread the inspiration.
Wow.
Thank you.
Indeed, we will spread the inspiration. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, Thank you very much for staying tuned, watching to this end. And don't forget, every week we bring special guests who have lived in China for several years to share their life experience with you. Remember, I had an American dream only to end up in China. And I had poor mindset about China, but after coming to China, the story was different. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Stay connected and see you next week. This is where time will permit us to end the episode 12 of How Has China Impacted Your Life series. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for having you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.